Our story, the one that defines us, spins a tale of chapters that reveal the origin of our why. Join me in exploring the narratives of changemakers who rise to the moment more often than not, and who are defined not by their achievements, but by the storylines they believe in. Join me, Dr. Rod Berger, as I integrate my new book about storytelling into a conversation that meets the moment. This is The Narrative Edge, a podcast under the banner of Headroom with Dr. Rod Berger, presented by our friends at Rig Productions. And now, onto our show. Well, I will tell you that for those of you that have followed me in my storytelling pursuits and all the personalities across 4,000 interviews, it is often very rare that I will integrate in maybe somebody from my personal life or my history. One, maybe because it makes me feel older when I go back several decades and integrate people into really into sort of this exploration about what it means to be human and the stories that help to define us. But you know what? We're going to do that today because there's somebody that I've known for, we were just saying off air, we've, I think, crossed the 30-year lexicon, which is unfathomable to me, but speaks to a pride you have when you witness somebody's growth and development and accomplishments over several decades, because you knew them when, right? And that's a little bit about today. And I think, if anything, a lesson for all of us is that while it can be very competitive out there and the grass is always greener when we see other people put their achievements on Facebook or Instagram and the like, you know what, sometimes it's nice to sit down, take a breath, and celebrate those accomplishments of others that have played roles in your story then and now. And so let's do that today with Jhamal Robinson. He's the head of U.S. productions of unscripted and scripted at Fremantle. Jhamal, your background is like a who's who of studios and streamers. You have been previously the EVP and head of production at A&E, VP of physical production at Netflix, SVP and production management at Warner Brothers Discovery. You were at Yahoo, NBC Universal. There's not an office in Hollywood that has not seen your infectious smile.
Come on. There's an office somewhere out there, but yes, I've seen most of them at this point.
Look, what's fascinating to me is that, well, one, I should let people know that we go back, like I was saying, 30 years. We met through an organization in the 90s that was all about really helping young people understand themselves in a way that felt authentic in what that meant for them and their families across the U.S. And so, I met you. You were already sort of knee deep in that organization and doing a lot of great work. And I was sort of the newbie in that way. And, I experienced you then, and I feel this now today as well, that there's just sort of everybody's welcome sort of approach with you, that when you approach friendships and new relationships, the more the merrier. And what's interesting about that, Jhamal, is I don't know if we're living that way broadly in our society these days. It's, if anything, we're doing the opposite. We're pruning the rose bush of friendships and colleagues and communities in ways that feel very divisive. And so I just, it's good for me and my sensibility to be sort of back in your presence in the way in which you approach people. I want to talk broadly about story for you, because a lot of people go into Hollywood and it'll chew you up and spit you out faster than you can even the old shake a stick at, right? But you have stuck it out. And I couldn't believe it. I'll just sort of bring people up to date. But a couple of years ago, I'm in LA meeting at the Jim Henson Studios for my production deal on a show that I developed. And I hear someone scream out of their vehicle. They yell my name. And for those who know, obviously Los Angeles is a very large metropolitan area. And it was you, Jhamal, of all people, just driving by going, wait a minute, I know that guy. But it says something about your sensibility of always sort of knowing, being aware of what's around you. How have you survived? I'm going to use the word survived, but really you've thrived in Hollywood in a time when I know so many people that have struggled to maintain consistency for 5 years, let alone, we're going on 3 decades here.
3 decades. Yeah. First of all, thanks for having me on. This was an honor actually for me to accept the invitation that you put out. So thanks for that. I've watched you grow as well, my friend, and I know it's been through social media and everything. And I do remember that moment of us, you and I, reconnecting in this sort of strange way in LA. But I think it was meant to be, right? It is part of our continued story. How did I survive? How did I thrive? I do think it was a survival mode in many respects. Young Black kid. Born in LA but raised in Atlanta, and being a young Black kid, kind of a bit from the South, coming back to LA, coming back to do what I loved, and that was television, film. I wanted to be an actor. I did have to survive. It was and race isn't necessarily the only part of my story, but I think it's a big part of my story, and I think it has to be. And I'm okay with that because there were times where I would walk into a room after speaking with somebody on the phone. They say, "Oh, you sound different, or you look different." And I just remember those moments. And they weren't as overt as I probably just said, but they were definitely moments of clarity for me to say, you fit in one place in one way, but you may not fit in another way. And so I had to survive in breaking down those misconceptions, those misunderstandings. And so for me, being able to touch the people that I did touch and be in rooms that I maybe otherwise may not have been invited to because of my voice, I knew that when I walked into a room that I just had to continue being me and who I am. And I think that's what's allowed me to survive and then, as you said, thrive. So that's been a key driver for me.
It's so interesting, and it's a direct parallel in this regard. But people talk about sort of getting to the height of their their sector, whatever they do, right? And the irony is, people who don't know you. You're very tall, which is, and I only bring that up because you talked about obviously race, but when you sort of combine that and 6'8", 6'7", I mean, right? We're I just can't imagine what that's like, because you can't, in essence, you can't escape yourself. Not that you would want to, but when you walk into a room, they know who Jhamal is right out of the gate.
Absolutely.
And at some point, I mean, there's a great irony. You're now in a role, like you went from, I'd love to have the paintbrush and the canvas.
Yeah.
And now people are looking to you to say, can I paint on that canvas, Mr. Robinson, right? Yeah. Do you ever reflect on that this sort of, it's not about power and control, but when you live a life where you're one of one in that regard.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'll give you a background. You talked about wanting to be an actor. I remember sort of, putzing around in that space because I lived out there. Right. And somebody had gotten me a meeting with somebody who was, I guess, a big casting director. I remember this to this day. And I remember a meeting with her. She did somebody a favor. What am I? I'm like 22. And she said, if you want me to be honest, there are thousands of you here in LA. Like there was nothing distinguishable about me. It was like, 6 foot white guy that looks like this But the reverse was, you're sitting here 6'7", 6'8", right? Yeah. Young Black kid who from LA from California but grew up in Atlanta. Like it was like the opposite.
Yeah. Listen, it was. You're right. I wasn't the 6 foot white guy that looked like Dr. Rod Berger. I was the 6'7", dark complexion, Black kid from Atlanta that was, that came out to LA or came back to LA. So listen, I was unique, but I may have been in some respects too unique for some people. And that was hard. That was hard for me to get past because, well, I'm just me. I can't be anything else. What you see is really what you get. I can try to, maneuver around maybe my reactions to things or my actions to things. It was really interesting. Kind of fast forwarding way into my career. I was working at Warner Bros. Discovery, and I will never forget when COVID hit, and then we had I'm forgetting the gentleman's name. Oh my gosh, the guy that was beaten, and to death in Minnesota.
George Floyd.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, I should not forget that name. So forgive me, but George Floyd. So I just remember being in a room with David Zaslav, and I actually wasn't even in the room. We were on Zoom because it was COVID at the time. And I'll just never forget where he said, "Jhamal, I just want to do a town hall about George Floyd and just how we come together as a community." And one of the questions I was on a panel basically, so I'll set it up a little differently. David Zaslav, of course, current CEO of Warner Bros. Discovery, he asked me to be on a panel with the hosts of other folks in the company. So there's a global wide town hall. And one of the questions I was asked of me was, what do you do, Jhamal, when you walk into a room and you have to sort of tailor yourself? Do you feel like you have to tailor yourself? And I remember saying, yes, I have to code switch sometimes. And that's such I want your audience to kind of understand what that is. Code switching is I have to walk into a room and be different, not be myself. I have to walk into a room, sometimes virtually or not, and I have to be this person that I know I kind of am not being as authentic as myself because I need to wow them in a different way, right? And I remember talking because one of the networks that I oversaw was the Oprah Winfrey Network for Warner Brothers Discovery, amongst all their other networks. Was one of mine. And I remember saying, but I don't have to code switch when I walk into an Oprah Winfrey Network room because most of the people were Black executives. And so that to me hit so hard because when that question was asked, I remember immediately saying yes. And then I then remember following up in my head more so, but I don't have to code switch when I walk into that room. And that felt, I had a lot of pride in that. I'm going a bit down a rabbit hole, but I think what I'm trying to say is I know that my look can be intimidating. And there's times where I know I have to walk in and break down that again, misunderstanding, that barrier. I have to bring people into the conversation, and how I do that. And, in your book, you talk about, of course, what is your story? And then you talk about leadership, and, my way of leading is to bring people along for the conversation. And I think that has helped me tremendously in my career, certainly. But I think that's helped me just grow as a person as well. Because I put out what I hope others will give me, right? When I walk into a room. When I interviewed for this current position, with the president and CEO, or I think her official title CEO, Jen Mullen. She and I met for 20 minutes. And I remember leaving that meeting, and if she watches this, she'll now know the way I was thinking. I left that meeting going, I bombed it. Gosh, I bombed it. We only met for 20 minutes. A couple of days later, I got the call, hey, thumbs up. And I tell you that part of the story because I remember thinking, did I not show up? Oh, maybe I should have code switched. Maybe I should have. And I was going in my head of, I did that wrong. And what I did was I did that right. I did everything that I was supposed to do. And I realized I didn't have to code switch. I just said, this is who I am.
Is the flip of that asking yourself in that moment, and it did turn out well, obviously, but is it that you're asking yourself, was I too much me, like myself?
Yeah. Yes. Was I too much myself and therefore it threw her off? Right?
Yeah.
To have to think about that. And by the way, not just in African Americans, I'm sure there are other races that
sure.
think that, do that, and go through that, right? So anyway, I think that's what for me, I've had to really learn, if I just show up as myself, my full authentic self, it's going to work out for me in the long run. Because if I showed up my inauthentic self, and I got the job, well, now it's really bad, because now I have to like be that character. Right? Right. So anyway, so that's anyway. I want to kind of give you that background of sort of the where I was, even now at this point. Gosh, 8 years ago, I guess, or I'm not sure exactly how long I was at Warner Brothers, but when I had to show up for that was tough. That was tough.
How much of, I mean, the irony that you work in broadly storytelling, in many forms, I would think that at some level, it's like a feeling, an essence that I would imagine keep you honest with yourself.
Yeah.
Because you could, if you're very intelligent, you could have done a million different things, right? But you just happen to dive into an industry where it's about storytelling. It's about being able to read the authenticity, right, of the character, of the log line, of like the potential, the audience response. I would think that you're constantly, whether you're conscious of it or not, it's keeping you like, hey, Jhamal, man, I'm not being myself. Or is that fair?
I think so. The answer is yes, it is fair. There's a lot of times where, I'll read a script. I was just reading episode 4 for Baywatch, the reboot. I was reading that the other night, and I just remember the way I was reading it was I was trying to get into those characters, and really like the different characters that they had that the writers put in there. I just remember thinking, wow, like I can become this person, or I have to become this person in order to understand how this script is going to read or what the storyline is. I listen, there's in a way, I think we are all characters in this life, right? And we all have our own scripts. Again, certainly, paying homage to your book, we all have this story. We are all characters in a certain way. And how is somebody reading us? Right? How is somebody looking at me? And again, going back to the way I show up as a leader, what is my team? What is my team looking at? How is my team looking at my script and reading my script and who I am? I think that's important. I think that's key.
Has that impacted the way you've evaluated your own success, or the relationship you have with success? As a human, as a community member, as a spouse, as a leader, is that something that has impacted your relationship? Because I think it's something, when I think about young people, and I want to talk about young people and the role of stories in our lives, but I think it's something they don't get. It's not like brought into the open for them, that there is a relationship we all have individually, whether that's we hide from it, we run from it, we lean into it maybe further than we should. Yeah. Help me understand that sort of arc for you in the relationship you've had personally with success.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like my relationship with success has been, I guess I can look at it and say now it's a good one. It's been a positive one, but I also didn't know how to measure success for a long time. I think I was successful in becoming one of the first Black board of trustees on Bethany College, on Bethany College's board, Bethany College, West Virginia, on their board. I didn't realize that was a big deal, right? I was, handpicked, to work for the Entertainment Industries Council. They created this position for me, and they said, move back to LA, and we would love to just work with you. Success. What did the Emmy do for you? Because that's something if you think about it, back to your original story when you're talking about walking into a room and code switching,
right? Yeah. I mean, if there's ever sort of a mic drop moment where you could, but that's not your DNA, right? But there are plenty of people that I know, and I think the audience would know, where you'd think that would be the thing that you'd slam on the table and say, it's almost like shove it. Like I don't need to share my story because this right here is my story.
Yeah. So I think there's sometimes that we do what we do, Rod, is we, they say, I can show you better than I can tell you. Right. And yeah, I can walk in and, slam that down, or I can walk in and say, here are my accolades. Let me show you. But I'd rather tell people, I'd rather show through the action. Right. I'd rather be able to, walk into Fremantle as I did and not know, I knew a few people that were here, but not really, for all intent and purposes, not knowing a single person here, and in 8 weeks, receiving accolades from team members, leaders that work under me or work with me, and saying, you're killing it. And I'm like, oh, I am? Thank you. Right. Because I've gotten to this point in my career, and you're going to laugh at this, but I still don't know how to measure this success. And before we got on here, sort of offline, I think, we were saying, wow, Jhamal, you have a big deal position, or your position's a big deal. And I guess I don't see it, but I appreciate that.
How do you balance that? Because I relate to that, and I find that that's something that more and more people that you want to be confident, right? You want to exude that confidence. Yeah. But if you've built your career and your life and the people that you care about coming from a place of I'm no better than anybody else.
Absolutely.
Right. There's that. I don't know if it's a fear, but that sort of cautionary sort of radar on your head going off that says, if I switch modes now, will that detract from or take me down a different path? Like it is a fine line, is it not? Because there's inspiration. Yeah. And it's not just about race or gender or any of these things, but it's what if there's a young sort of black kid walking around LA who hears about you and says, man, if he's doing it, I can do it. Yeah. Let alone just any kid.
Yeah, I had that, Rod. It's really it's funny you even bring that up, because I actually had that happen. I left Netflix and I took a year off, and my admin coordinator, that she stayed there, and we kind of kept in touch, whatever. And about 8 or 9 months later, she said, "Oh my God, Jhamal, people are still asking about you." She said, "You have no idea the impact you made on folks here." And then she invited me probably maybe a year later after that to an event called Black at Netflix. And it's their ERG group, employee resource group. And she said, and then she said, I just want you to just come, just be in the audience if you don't mind. And it was, they basically had some comedians, and they had some leadership speakers and whatnot. And it's a pretty big ERG at Netflix. And I remember walking in, and Rod, I felt like a celebrity. I was like, this is what this is like. And what was so cool about it is that I felt like this like celebrity-esque type of walking in, because people are like, oh, Jhamal, oh my gosh, so good to see you. And, oh, how have you been? I haven't talked to you in forever. And, and listen, I felt bad because I'm like, I don't remember your name. But it was this moment of, I had a lot of, in that room, in that specific room, there were a lot of young Black executives who said, I just look up to you. I'm following your career. I see what you're doing on LinkedIn. Thank you for posting that. When you posted X, it made me think about Y. And so for me, I so long as I continue to just be me, I guess people will recognize that. But I get giddy, I think, when I do have, like I did with that ERG, a young, up and coming sort of executive, Black executive, or any executive at that matter, but Black executive saying, I just would love to do what you do. Your career has been so inspiring to me. My career, thank you. But my career, you know what I mean? So I have to get out of my head sometimes, even still today. I have to get out of my head sometimes, right? And but honestly, if I can just take 2 seconds and just say, I get to call you Dr. Rodberger, like that, honestly, it means more to me than you realize. And here I am, I'm getting teary-eyed. It means more to me than you realize. And the fact that I've been able to surround myself with people like yourself. You and I haven't spoken 2 words to each other before the Jim Henson in 15, 20 plus years at that point. And it was almost like
it was like yesterday.
It was like yesterday. And but I think what that meant for me was what that felt like for me, and what that meant to me was I know the people that I want to keep in my life. Right. And those are the people who are going to prop me up, who are going to say, attaboy, right? Who are not going to judge, but who are going to congratulate, right? Who are going to just applaud me, and applaud even when I've maybe stumbled a little bit, or I've fallen a little bit, and say, you got this.
Well, see, and that's to me, Jhamal, is what is really powerful, because I think that when we think about relationships and stories, right, it's disrespectful, I think, in general, for people to just assume that they're sort of living their own story on their own. It's like, no. Stories combine. We share the freeway together of characters, of experiences, of sunsets and sunrises. And so, for us, it was, we knew each other back when we were incredibly vulnerable to a world that was either going to tell us get out, or there would be some dumb luck that we would have fallen in at that time. And I think you learn a lot about yourself. You learn about just humanity, like, and all the mistakes I made back that, like, I just think being open to that is going to be something in our storytelling, tying it back to the work that we're both passionate about, that can help. It's like, I just recently interviewed a fantastic guy. You talk about doing a series. Not that you want an idea.
You never know.
Richard Browning of Gravity Industries. He's the one that developed the jet suit for humans.
Oh, yeah.
He's been on 60 Minutes. Incredible, Jhamal. But his concern is about his boys and kids not having the same inspiration that we've all grown up with, because they're living in a world where everything can be basically manufactured. And now we look at Hollywood, and while there's a half of me that says, wow, I can't believe what I'm able to do from a storytelling perspective that I'm really excited about, to expand and like sort of stretch even further than I ever thought I could. But then I also think to myself, when I see these things come out, and it's like, oh, wow, look at this fight scene between Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt that went viral, right? And it's like, it had nothing to do with them. And you think, okay, what will that do? Do we care if it's human or not? What do we actually care about? And what is it about the power of cinema, of a screen, even the size that fits in our hand, that says, you know what it actually does to me? It reminds me that I'm human. And so that's the part that I wonder about, like the responsibility. You talk about going into a room in Netflix where you've got people looking up to you. And I would say, I would add on to that, I'd bolt onto that and say, I'd be curious about the responsibility that you and your contemporaries potentially feel, not on maybe a moment to moment basis, but enough that it's a part of your ethos that says, how do we keep, one, the value of storytelling where it is? And can we also prepare for a future where storytelling might be one of the most important things we have? Jhamal. Now I don't mean to sound like doomsday guy, but when everything gets automated, I think people are going to be looking for everything they can that reminds them, no, I'm made of flesh. I'm not perfect. I still feel elation, and I feel sadness and these sorts of things.
I mean, I think it's Maya Angelou. I'm going to get the quote completely wrong, but go with me. People may not remember what you told them, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. And again, the quote is certainly way off, but please understand the sentiment. And that is that I think that goes along with storytelling. How did the story make you feel? How does it make us all feel. And, when you talk about, listen, there's a responsibility that I have as a storyteller, to tell as accurate of stories as possible. Certainly, we have movies where there's there is the fiction and the nonfiction, right? So there's documentaries and whatnot. But we have a responsibility, I think, as storytellers in this industry to be authentic and to be able to allow people to feel, right? Storytelling can be that escape as well. I mean, I think we're all looking sometimes, in these current times for an escape from reality, right? One of the shows I worked on at Netflix, amongst the many I worked on, but was Airbender. And Airbender, I remember visiting the set in Vancouver, and I just remember visiting, and I was like, this is just such a fantasy world, that this set, and the storytelling and, the big monsters and, walking around and whatever. And I just remember thinking, wow, but people enjoy this. They enjoy that. And I remember, I was talking to some folks, and I said, oh, there are some friends. They said, oh, where were you? And I said, oh, I was on the set of Airbender. Like, oh, wow, I love that. I love that. Love that show. Stranger Things was another one that I did while I was in Netflix.
Mildly successful show.
But I worked on that one, and and just being able to be around this certainly the set and whatever, but just knowing like this is a big part of storytelling. And sure, a lot of the things are sci-fi and and the laser beams and the troopers, whatever. There's so many different things that they had on that set, but I think there's still a responsibility, right, that we have, and that responsibility, I feel a sense of being the gatekeeper to a lot of that. In my position, I more and more probably start to understand what my position is and how important it is to storytelling, whether it's fiction or nonfiction, or whether I'm doing The Price is Right, or Family Feud, two of my other shows, or I'm doing Baywatch, right? There's a connective tissue somewhere, and yeah, maybe it's a bit of a stretch when you're talking about a game show, but there's a connective tissue somewhere in there, especially in this industry. And as we start to move into AI, I oversaw the AI studio when I was at A&E. I'm really diving into AI. We are diving into AI here at Fremantle, and listen, there's a responsibility to be accurate, right? And I think that for me is key in my success.
Let's close with this, Jhamal. Take me back to Georgia. Take me back to a young Jhamal who would stare up at night. And I know how important your family is to you, and you have a big personality which matches your height and your love of people. But I just have all these memories of you talking about family and just the big smiles, right, in ways that I don't find happen all the time with people, and that's okay. Yeah. But take me back. Just how do you understand a conversation that you'd be overhearing in a kitchen in Georgia about dreaming what you could have become now, right? Like, would this have been like, what's the smell in the kitchen? What do we like? Who's in that kitchen that would have been right there to say, honey, you do whatever you want to do. If it's a grandma, whatever, we believe in you.
Yeah. Oh man, you're going to really take me back. Georgia, being a kid, I was lucky. I was a lucky kid. I had a father who was one of the most supportive people I could have ever come across, certainly. My mom as well. My parents divorced. My mom lived here in Los Angeles. My dad lived in Atlanta. And as you may recall, I got to see both of them equally the same. But during school, I was with my dad in Georgia. Listen, if I'm in the kitchen, I know this. I know the smells. The smells are my dad fixing dinner, and his son, me walking in, telling him, Dad, I want to audition for the Mickey Mouse Club. And he said, okay. I said, no, I really do want to audition for the Mickey Mouse Club. And he continues to cook dinner, which he literally did. Continues to cook dinner. And he said, well, son, if that's what you want to do, I fully support you. Listen, I know I'm incredibly blessed, and, being that kid that was bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and didn't know what world was actually out there. I did not make it on the Mickey Mouse Club, as you could tell.
But I was looking for those videos.
yeah, they're out there somewhere. You and I know somebody that made it, but but being that kid that did not understand success. I didn't know my story. I didn't know how to write my story. I'm probably still learning some more of how to write my story today, but I didn't know how to write my story. So, my father, and my mom and my family, they made that impact on me, to say, don't worry, your story's being written. It's just going to take a second. And they were right. My dad was right. And, part of my story was the organization you and I were in. Part of my story, a big part of my story, is meeting the guy on the screen right now, Dr. Rod Berger. Part of my story was moving back to LA, having one of the coolest roommates I could have possibly ever had, supporting each other, not realizing that all that's a part of our story, my story, your story. So that kid in Atlanta, I'm proud of him.
You know what I love about that? What I love about that is there are people in this world, and I've sort of vacillated between both. There are people in this world that see the sunshine and they just soak it in, and they just want to sort of spread it around so that everybody feels that ray of sunshine, regardless of where they are in their own emotionality and life and these sorts of things. You're one of those humans that I know, and it's a select few that I know, right? It's far easier to find the cynic or those that put their head in the sand because they just don't really want to think about what that next page is when they turn it with regards to their own story. And yet you've done that, knowing that this might not go well, but guess what? It's going to get me to the following page. And I think that's a fantastic lesson for young people. And I'm going to close with this, Jhamal. There's a fantastic irony, and I think it's really great. But, unscripted, when it sort of came in vogue when we were early on in our days in LA together, it wasn't taken as seriously, right? Because it was just, let's just put a camera in a family, unit and run with it. And it was just wild to everybody. Yeah. But I have this sneaking suspicion that those that understand the beauty and the messiness of an unscripted life are going to be the ones that will be painting the canvases of a future that we have yet to understand or visit. And I'm glad that you are one of the key players in that space. And look, Fremantle, Fremantle, people know Fremantle of all the amazing productions. So this is a fantastic opportunity for you and hopefully for others to learn more about all the great work out there. But you're a fantastic storyteller and an even better person. And, thank you for inspiring not only me, but so many people out there, regardless of their background, their ethnicity, their gender, all of it. We need people who are willing to take chances, and you've done that. You've bet on yourself countless times, and it's paying off. We want to thank my old roommate and buddy, Jhamal Robinson. He's the head of U.S. production of Unscripted and Scripted, the Emmy Award winner from Fremantle. Thank you, Jhamal.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rod. Appreciate it.
You've been listening to The Narrative Edge. You can get your copy of the book wherever books are sold. And remember that The Narrative Edge takes you around the world of storytelling, returning you to your story and the moments that define a life in motion. I want to thank my friends at Rig Productions and encourage you to check them out if you're looking to broadcast your ideas. Until next time, my friends, and remember that if you're not in control of your story, well, who is?